Hi everyone, thanks for joining us this afternoon for our webinar today, How K-12 Schools Overcome Today's District-Wide Administrative Challenges. My name is Nicole Schmeida. I'm the Marketing Specialist here at Docuware. The webinar today will be presented by Mark Machonsky, Regional Sales Director. We also have Tom Voigt, Information System Coordinator from Independent School District 196. So if we look on the right side, today's agenda, the first few minutes, Mark will go over, what are the challenges you may be facing, K through 12 districts may be facing, and how you can solve them with a single digital solution. Then he'll go into a live demo. After that, Tom will come on the line and we'll walk through, he'll share with us how ISD, achieved digital administration with Docuware. And then at the end, we'll open it up for Q&A. So we're scheduled for 45 minutes, but if there are a lot of questions, we might go a bit over, but don't worry, by tomorrow morning, I'll send you out a copy of the recording and the slides. So with that now, I'll pass it off to Mark.
Great, thank you, Nicole. I appreciate you introducing us here, and I'm super excited to be here today and share with you Docuware's vision of how we can help you with your current challenges in running your school district or your school. So, we recognize that schools are complicated places that are challenged with lots of challenges. Things like, oftentimes not having the budget you need to get things done. In terms of information management, which is what we're talking about today, there's probably many silos of information that you have to go to gather information to do your day-to-day job. There's data protection, making sure that the data that you store about your students, about your teachers, about your business is protected. But that's the starting point. We're all into a new set of challenges, and I think we all know that schools have been hit really hard. With new learning environments for students and teachers all working remotely, it's created a lot of challenges. That means distributing technology, whether it's PCs or tablets, to students and teachers so that they can access each other, tracking those assets out there, avoiding and getting away from paper-based forms in a contactless fashion. There's lots and lots of challenges out there. And we do believe that we have a set of tools that can help you go a long ways to addressing those challenges. So here's a survey that was done recently by Education Dive that I think is just saying that a lot of you are working very hard and are starting to feel somewhat prepared for the school year. But that's about 50% of you, and there's a lot of you that really feel totally unprepared, and you're looking for ways to solve your problems. That being said, many of you are quite optimistic. And again, the point of that is to say that if you're trying to move up that scale to very prepared, we're here to try to help you today. One of the key problems that I alluded to earlier was the fact that there's forms that drive a lot of processes across your school or district. They can be everything from tracking scholarship money to new hire onboarding. Maybe at the finance side, maybe you need to onboard vendors or pay bills quicker. And we're going to talk about a very specific set of use cases that I've come up with that I think are of high value right now as well. But the point is that if you're working with paper now, or maybe complex or cumbersome PDF forms, we can offer you a solution to help drive manage those forms in a more efficient fashion. Now, let me quickly describe what Docuware is all about. We've been implementing document management systems for 30 plus years, I believe now. If you think about us in a very generic sense, you can think about us as a database for documents of any type, whether it's an email, a Word document, an e-form from Docuware, scanned paper. All of that can be stored securely in digital file cabinets and accessed by the people that have the rights to access such document. And by the way, we also allow you to track who's accessing all that content. Specifically today, we're going to focus on creating and filing digital forms that you can create, that you can publish on your website, that you can send links to via email. And when they land in the Docuware cabinets repository, they can be stored and secured. But additionally, the most important piece of this is they open up workflows. They initiate workflows that alert people that they have work to do related to a form and follow a predefined path that is your best practice for doing business. And there's timers that keep you on track and push things through the process. So we're going to see some of that taking place here today in the demonstration that I prepared for you. You can use any device that you might have at your fingertips. So you could access content through an Android or an Apple device, be it a tablet or a phone. You can access that through a browser-based interface. Any place you have access to the internet, you can access content securely in the Docuware system. So with that, I'm going to launch into a Docuware demonstration. And let me close down my PowerPoint here and drop into a Docuware session running, in this case, in a Chrome browser. You can use your browser of choice. Thank you for turning off the webcam, Nicole. And I'm going to just describe the screen that we're looking at here real quickly. It's a very simple, clean screen. We really invest a lot of energy in making a tool that's easy to learn, easy to use, but it's got a lot of power and depth as you learn more about it. On the right-hand side is where we're going to view documents. We can view any type of document you might, well, up to 300 different file formats without you having to launch the business application that created it. So you can be extremely productive based on that. I'm not going to go into this today, but we have all kinds of tools that you can use to mark up documents, to share documents and email them, to make notifications on the document. I'm going to close that down for now. On the left-hand side is where you interact with documents as you collect them, as you need to find them, as you receive work. And I'm going to describe the menu to you real quickly. Right now, we're in the document tray. A document tray is just like the tray on your traditional desktop where documents sit and wait for you to process. There just happens to be a teaching certificate right now in this tray waiting for somebody to process. It probably came in via email, and we can see that the certificate is the first part of the document, and the second part of it is the actual email that it was attached to. So just a quick touch on what documents mean to us there. Next up, we have the search mechanism, and searching allows you to browse through various cabinets. For example, here's a student application cabinet where we track and collect student applications. Here's one for asset tracking, and here's one for employee records. Each one utilizing different tags to help you find data. Remember, I described this as a database for documents. That being said, we can also make this whole repository look and feel like an Explorer shared folder, if you like, as well, so that people that aren't familiar with Docuware can use it. We're going to see used here as well lists. And lists, I guess to summarize it, consider it kind of a dashboard that gives you a high-level overview of what's going on in your business. Right now, you can see that we have in our asset tracking dashboard, which I've created for this demo, we have 5 assets, PCs, phones, TVs, whatever, that are currently assigned to somebody. And we have 4 that are in inventory. And I can click on any one of these buttons and we'll see what's in inventory, each one of these line items being representing a document. Finally, we're going to see tasks that are sent to people. As documents are collected and they meet a certain criteria, people will be presented with tasks. I'll call that workflow. They'll be presented with documents and instructions on how to proceed with that document and options on how to proceed. So that's my quick introduction here. Move a few things around so I can close my windows here. And let's get this demonstration started. I thought I'd start with a story around student registration. And as I said earlier, you may be collecting paper-based forms, you may be using PDFs via email. Either way, it's cumbersome and difficult to track and trace those documents. So let's start by looking at a Docuware form I've crafted here for student applications. Now, I opened that document on my desktop, and it represents a link to this form. That can be posted on your website. It can be emailed to people. So you can basically present a form anywhere you like in your digital world. And here you can see I've crafted this simple 1-page application form, enrollment form. Now, this is a simplification. Yours was probably more complex and collects a lot more information. We can mirror whatever it is you need to collect. So for right now, I'm just going to close that one down, and I've pre-filled a form right now for that has been completed by a parent guardian. Here we've got a enrollment form, application form from Donald Duck, whose child is a mini Mickey Mouse here, and you can see the details they filled out. They're going into kindergarten, and they'll be requiring an IEP 504 review. Here's the birth date. Various other information can be filled out. There's lots of different controls that you can add to this environment, such as, for example, I can have pull-down lists that allow me to select from a list of available options. Here I've got kindergarten through 5th grade. That's a predefined list that I've crafted here. Of course, dates with calendars that you can use to select the dates. I've got check boxes, a wide variety of controls and formatting. So, for example, in the email field, I won't allow a non-email data to be presented. Also, as I fill in data on a given form, we might expand it. So if in fact I had 2 children, notice here that I pre-filled this out, but Minnie Mouse is actually going to be going to school as well, and she'll be in the 1st grade, and here's her birthday. So the elegance of this is I can present to a parent guardian one form that they can fill out for 2 or more children, and when they submit it, that document will be presented and filed in Docuware. They'll always get a message saying the document's been filed away. Now, I'm going to jump into my own personal email here for a moment here. And what's happened is the document, the form, in fact, 2 forms that we've filled out have been filed in Docuware, and the workflow is waiting, is monitoring, and you'll notice here that it has found those forms and it is immediately communicated back to our parents that in fact Mickey Mouse, his application has been accepted for the 2020 year. You should hear from us in a couple days, and the application is attached for reference. I'll point out here that this form looks very different than the simple web form that we filled out here. This is more stylized. We can take that data and paste it into one or many forms. So here's that was Mickey's, and of course we've got Minnie's is right behind with a second application. So that communication is initiated with the parent immediately. So I'm going to step back into the Docuware world now, and let's take a peek at our desktop now. And I'm playing the role of an administrator here who's responsible for onboarding a enrolled student. What we'll see that's changed here is we've got this red dot under tasks. That wasn't there before. I'm going to select that, and we'll see that I've got one task in a short bit. When that second workflow has completed, we should see a second workflow for our second student. But for starters, I'm going to open this one here. And when I select the line item, the task, you will see that it displays to us the first student, Minnie Mouse's workflow, or a document and application here for our review. And on the left bottom here is where we give instructions to our administrator, where they can, from here, review the instructions. You know, when you complete this, you need well, any instructions you like there. And by the way, I can collect additional comments. Looking forward to Minnie in class this year. So again, this is all configurable. We can collect any information. I have the option to approve this document, and I also have the option to reject it. And when I reject it, I have the ability to enter a reason for rejection. The elegance of this is when I enter a reason, it'll craft a piece of correspondence that'll go directly to the parent guardian and alert them that there is a rejection, and you can give them the reason why, keeping the communication moving. But for this case, I'm going to quickly confirm Minnie, and then we'll do the same with Mickey, and I won't add a comment to that one. So we've approved initially 2 students, and again, back in our email, we are seeing the communication trickling in, informing our parents that, in fact, Minnie Mouse has been accepted for the year. And note here that we've posted a digital stamp on that document indicating that the enrollment has been reviewed and approved, and here are our additional comments with my spelling errors and everything pasted on that so that we've got a reference point of what we said to the parent guardian. And here's our second one. I won't open that, but I'll delete that so we keep things moving and clean here. Next up, if you recall, I enrolled 1 student requiring IEP assessment and 1 not. So the first application is done. And of course, whatever your application process is, we can mirror that. I've built a very simple one here. In this case, we've got the IEP. Next step is for somebody to select a couple dates that might be appropriate for administration to have a 1-hour meeting with the client or whatever, the parent, and we'll pick a couple dates here that are available. Once I do this and I confirm, an email again will be crafted and sent off to the parent guardian requesting a date for the IEP 405 meeting. Shortly, once we should see the next step up here, assume that we've gotten an email or a form back from the parent indicating what date they wanted. And here, I'll just simply manually select the date that we want for the IEP meeting and confirm. Meanwhile, back in email, there's a flurry of emails that have been sent out to our parent, keeping them informed of every step of the way. And here we're seeing the potential meeting dates that we asked for, we told them about. Next up, we'll see the actual date that, in fact, we selected or they selected, asking them and giving them the instructions on how to deal with the meeting. So communication, keeping things flowing, keeping it clean and crisp. Now, I will point out that let's look to the left here at our task at our list box, and we'll see that while we had no information in this, let's call it dashboard or task or overview list here, we now have a list of all the applications that have come in for this school year. There have been 2. There have been 1 standard application, 1 IEP, and there are no open meetings that have not been accepted yet for the IEP. So this is where administration can monitor what's going on in the business. At any given time, I could click on a list of all the students in the business and the company, or better, I'm sorry, company, school that have submitted and been accepted. And here's all their information. What grade are they going into? What's the parent's phone number? What's their email? What's their name? What type of student are they in terms of requirements? Or do they need IEP or not? And if this is a long list with thousands of clients or students, I could in fact filter this and say, okay, I just want to see all of those that were not IEP based, and I could filter that, or I could search for a given student by name if I needed to find them. So that's the story on the student registration side of things. I want to switch gears now, and I want to jump into another use case that we're finding very useful in this day and age, and this is really something that will help the IT not lose documents related to asset tracking. Being able to produce data and find who has what, when, and reissue them to other people in the organization as people come and go and need tools. So what I'm first going to do is, let's just take a quick look. I'm going to do a search in our asset tracking database. And here's all the data we track about each asset. They include the document type, but we also track the serial number of a unit if it's there, who's it been assigned to, the status of that item, and the asset tag number for that matter. And if we were to do a quick search and search for all asset tracking forms, we'll see here that in fact there are 7 or 8 different assets of different types. And when I do a search, I can sort by any number of these fields to make it easy to find the item I might be looking for. We use a form. IT could use a form to check in new assets. as they're received. And here we're going to open a form that they might have in their desktop. And we'll very simply, I'll use myself as a guinea pig here. I'm going to assign this to myself. I'm going to indicate that I'm an employee, not a student. The asset type is a computer, and the asset description is it's a Dell 5401 with a serial number that I'll make up here pretty quickly. And by the way, if I wanted to, I could attach to that form a spec sheet on that unit, and I can simply drag it into my form. We've all done that with various forms, and I can submit that. So now, when we go back into Docuware, first of all, we can see that form's been submitted successfully. And when we go into our list item here, we'll see that this red dot indicates that a new asset has been recorded and it's been made available to somebody in the organization. If you'll notice here that I will find myself here, and here's Mark Mashonsky's latitude 5401, and we can see the spec sheet on that unit here and browse through that if we wanted to. Now, let's say Mark says, oh, I don't need a laptop, I'm just going to use my own. What we want to do is get that back into inventory quickly and make everybody aware that it's back in inventory. So I'm going to use a new Docuware tool you haven't seen yet called a stamp. And we're going to pick a stamp that I've built. It's called the asset return stamp. And I'm simply going to say, I got the asset, it's been returned into inventory. And therefore, when I go back and look at my tracking list here, we've got a new asset in the inventory. It just so happens to be Mark Mashonsky's new asset, and it's available for reissue. Now, when I want to reissue that, I can do the same type of process with a stamp, and I can reassign that to somebody in the organization, and I'll designate whether they're an employee or a student. And we're going to set a second stamp here right below the first one. So we're getting a record of who was initially assigned to, when it was returned, when it was assigned to a new person. And we also keep a secondary kind of an audit history of that as well, related to all documents in the system. We can see who's touched every document, who's opened it, who's added the annotations. So we get a full history and visibility into everything that's happened related to every document. So extremely powerful and simple, replacing spreadsheets and paper-based processes. All right, once again, we're going to switch gear, and I'm going to switch over to a story around onboarding of a new employee. And so I'm jumping into what can be a much more sophisticated Docuware story around human resources. We can start from building a workflow for creating a job, a job that you want to post, number one, collecting resumes and running it through the appropriate interview schedule and collecting all the information we need to make a hire or no hire decision. And the workflow, ultimately, we're stepping in right here when the teacher has been accepted and they've just gotten from Docuware an email saying, welcome aboard, we're looking forward to you joining us for the 2020 year. Click on this link and you'll be presented with a form to start your onboarding process. Now, onboarding, we've all probably onboarded jobs, well, we all have in our life, and usually it requires sitting down with a set of forms. I've got customers that have up to 30 different forms that need to be completed, each of which you have to write your name and initials and social numbers and maybe phone numbers and various information. The intent here is to take one form, a digital form, and complete it and use it in Docuware's merge form capabilities to fill out all those other forms preliminarily. And here I'm completing this for our new teacher, Joe Teacher, and we'll add a birth date for him. I'm just gonna pick a couple days ago. Here's his address. We're gonna type in his social number. We enforce that you can only have 2 data items in this field, and that's required. Obviously, our email address. We'll check that he's male, and we can select from a number of options. Here, I'm going to simply select that he's a citizen of the United States. Now, here's a signature pad that he can sign, and the signature will be pasted into appropriate locations on appropriate documents. But if he wants to know what's going on with this, where this is all going, what he's doing by signing and filling out this form, I've given him this button that he can select, and here is an informational set of details on what's happening, and he could click a link here if he chose to see the actual documents and review those. Of course, we could also configure the system so we send him digital copies at the end of the process. But let's submit that to Docuware. So we've filled out one form. But let's jump in and take a look at all the documents that are available for our new employee right now. And I'm going to open up our employee records file cabinet, and I'm going to do a quick search for Mr. Teacher. And you'll notice here I just start typing his last name, and it finds him, pre-fills my search dialog, and I can do a quick search. And we'll find here that, in fact, there are 4 documents that are available that are representing Joe's onboarding documents. The first being this emergency contact form, and we've just filled out the top of it here, but we placed the data we collected in the Docuware form into a copy of your original form so we can keep things looking and feeling familiar for you. We've also created a W-4 form, which posted all the data right in the right location of the in this case, the 2019 tax form. We've also filled out and populated the I-9 form. Along with the signature here that you can see and all the social number in the right location. So we can fill out as many or as few forms as you want, and each of those forms can wake up an activity and create a work process. That can be a parallel work process going to multiple people or single people, and it can be rules-based. Based on the position, it may go to different locations and different people. In this case, the one workflow that I've created is a simple validation step to confirm that the I-9 is, in fact, they are who they say they are, and they are from where they say they are. So when I open this task for verifying the new teacher's I-9, the instructions are down here in the bottom left, the documents are on the right. We'll see that we've assigned them to the role of teacher, we've assigned them an employee number, we can manually, in this case, assign them a start date, and the instructions say you need to get a copy of I-9 validation information. Scan a copy of the driver's license or passport and attach it to our document. So let's do that. I've got a driver's license here, and I'm going to drag, let's apologize for that. Let me start that over. I need to tell the system that I want to clip a new document to the original document that we were viewing, and I'll simply drag that over to a temporary tray here. So it's moving from my desktop to tray in the internet access of Docuware. I could review that and say, okay, that scan looks fine, it's readable. I want to clip it to my original I-9 in this order. I could put it in front or I could put it in back if I wanted to. But we could build documents, add components to documents over time. So my job is, the final task I have is to identify what the document type is that I've validated against. And here I'm just going to say, through Docuware's point and click indexing. I'm not typing anything here. I'm just using my mouse to drag over the picture here, and it reads the words driver's license. And I can also quickly index this by pointing and clicking on driver's license number. Now, we've just filed all those records. The next quick workflow that I thought I'd share with you, and it's a problem that we all have, is I've showed up at jobs where they didn't have a PC or a phone or a desk and didn't know I was coming on my first day. So here is an alert that was been kicked off, and IT's been told that, in fact, they have a new employee starting on a given date, which is down here. You need to assign them a new phone number, and first of all, they need to pick what asset they're going to use, and of course, I've given them a link into an asset record to create a new asset, or we could pull one from inventory and get that phone number if we wanted to. But what I'm going to do, I'll just pick my email address, and we'll give it Joe Teacher Docuware Academy.com. So this is the new information. We're going to be assigning details to our new employee for the 2020 season. When I'm done, I've satisfactorily filled out all the information. I simply say confirm, and back in the new teacher's personal email, they should find very shortly a email with all the details that we've created for them. By the way, they also got a notification that they're required to back off. Here's the details that we wanted to send them: the phone number, the corporate email, and instructions to stop by and pick up their phone and their PC here. The last thing that's sent out is an alert saying, hey, you have to supply credentials for your certification as a teacher or as a driver or whatever your role might be in the organization here. And the instructions are you can email this back to Docuware and we'll register that record. So back in Docuware, I've already taken the liberty of dragging the teacher certification into our tray. We're just going to quickly file that away in our new employee, as a employee record here. And I'm designated that it still needs to be processed. I'm just filing it now. I'm going to point and click and say this is Mr. Teacher Joe, and we're going to grab the expiration date for this certificate here. And I'm going to store that. Meanwhile, back in our list box here, we'll notice here that there's a new item here. There's a new credential for processing. So here I get to, somebody in administration will now have the responsibility of reviewing this, make sure it's accurate and meets all the expectations of the school. And once they've identified that that's good, they probably need to check and see if there's an old certification that needs to be deleted or eliminated. So I've built this little link that basically takes what we know about this record and it searches to see if there's any related documents. And by the way, here's one that we can see. There happens to be a current document or certification that's expiring in a couple days. And in fact, we could have even seen that back here in our list box. We can see that there's our employee records dashboard says that there's one record ready for expiration within a couple days, and we could have actively worked on that. But in this case, I'm just going to open up the soon to be expired one, and I'm going to drop on it stamp that's going to request that it be deleted. Now, that being said, we typically don't let anybody in the organization just delete documents. We typically give them the opportunity to delete stuff by requesting a deletion. So it takes at least 2 people to make a deletion. So here's the reason that I am going to request a deletion. And based on that, we should see an alert. I think I built an alert in here that indicates that there's, I guess I didn't. There's a queue that somebody's monitoring for deletion purposes. So with that kind of wraps up a flurry of solutions that we can do for your schools. We can also help you with accounts payable and paying bills more efficiently and managing your new vendor information and onboarding new vendors. We can help you with contract management and looking for contracts as they're expiring, facilities management. But that's my demonstration, Nicole. You can take it from there.
All right, yeah, thanks, Mark. So with that, I'm actually going to, let's go back to the PowerPoint. And so again, what you saw the solution live, and that was just a very introductory 3 use case examples. But right now, I actually want to invite Tom back on the line, and he's going to actually walk you through how ISD uses Docuware for their document storage and administrative processes across their 31 campuses. And again, this is just another use case. Document storage and workflow can be applied to your district specific needs. So let's jump in. All right, Tom, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it. If you could introduce ISD and your role there and what you're responsible for, that would be great.
Well, thanks, Nicole. It's a pleasure to be here. As she said, my name is Tom Boyd. I'm the Information Systems Coordinator for Rosemont, Minnesota. It's Rosemont, Apple Valley, Minnesota. We're a suburban school district that's in the southeast metropolitan area of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. So we have just over 29,000 students, 32 campuses now. We just opened a new facility, and over 4,000 staff with teachers and students and whatnot, or staff, teachers, administrators. And I guess it's been over 17 years now that we've been using Docuware in our school district to solve a variety of needs. Ultimately, we had a paper problem that started this all. So that's a little bit about me. So.
All right, great. Yeah, so that leads in perfectly to my next question. Can you give us an overview of, how are you using Docuware currently at ISD?
Well, it all started with our HR department, and I think like so many school districts, especially larger school districts, we ran into a storage problem and we had a paper problem. And at the time, we were a very conventional department. I mean, large file cabinets storing everything we knew about a whole bunch of employees. And not only was that inefficient, but we were starting to determine as the size of our district that if somebody were to pull a record and maybe one of our supervisors was working with it, suddenly it was no longer available for somebody else that might have needed to also work with an individual. And so things got misplaced occasionally. And so we started with HR and knowing that student records was our natural next dovetail. And we worked through a process where we literally brought in trucks and we shipped out all of the paper records, working with a third-party vendor to help us get up to speed, just doing all the high-speed mass scanning so that we could be only down for a couple of weeks, to be honest. And then we came back digital, and now everything we do in our HR department, now, we still have an HRIS platform, we still have an SIS platform, some of these dedicated enterprise systems that are dedicated to tracking of things. But when we get into that permanency level, that's good for Blinky data. But when we get into that permanency, what is the permanent record that we're legally obligated to keep? Like all the other school districts, we have a lot of both state and federal mandates of how long we have to keep things. And for a lot of us, it's indefinite. We needed a better way. And so, as one could think, bringing in semis and hauling off a bunch of file cabinets draws attention. And so, next in line, we went to student records. Since every graduate of our district, we graduate with 2,300 students per year from our 4 high schools. Every one of those records is digitally archived and has been since '96. Prior to that, we were microfilm. That was our record consolidation method, but if anybody has ever been on microfilm knows, microfilm gives you an incremental advantage. It gives you a smaller size, but you still have a retrieval time that's eating into your time that your staff takes. Whereas moving to a digital platform, we can pull up records and we can have multiple people handling records requests, and it's nearly instant. As Mark showed, of all the variety of ways you can index your information, because there is that database. Uh, we can search by your name, your student ID, you graduated, where you graduated from, the date you graduated, all these various ways that help us find the record to make sure we're issuing it to the right individual and to the right institution that might want to see it. So, and from there, it's everyone starts to come up with ideas, and that's great. And in many ways, we started the SAMR model, if you will, the substitution and then augmentation. A lot of it, they were just thinking in the way they thought analogically. Like, we had this record, we had a box, now we're making it a digital box. And honestly, that works fine for a lot of what we need to do, because some of these records we need to keep indefinitely, but that we don't need to often retrieve them. But when we do, we need to retrieve them pretty quickly. In Minnesota, we have a 10-day record requirement to get records back for an individual that is the topic. So, and now we're keeping Board of Education records. We're required to keep those. So all the actions of our board are kept digitally. Moving into the payroll facilities, as Mark showed, a lot of the workflows that you can start to do, we've moved into there. Some of those records don't have permanency requirements. So we set up retention policies that say, we'll keep these for 7 years and then we can get rid of them. We've even moved into, we bought a blueprint scanner, a 36-inch flatbed or scanner, roll scanner. So all of the documents that pertain to the as-built of our buildings, when they were built, those have all been digitally archived. So our maintenance staff can pull up records when they need to very readily and from their offices, no longer have to move to a central building for that. And then of course, financial documents. So these are all the variety of things that we're currently doing with Docuware in our system. So.
All right, great. Yeah, thanks for that really, big picture overview. So, just kind of like summarize what you said. It sounds like, you started in one area, HR, and then, seeing the proven success and benefits there, felt confident and secure and expanding it hourly district-wide. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
people talk. I mean, and success was important, but having a feather in our cap with the HR department, I mean, where it really matters. I mean, had it not gone as well as it did, we wouldn't continue to do it. And so that was great.
Definitely. So yeah, next question is, why Docuware? Why choose Docuware over, other solutions available?
Well, first and foremost, legitimacy. We have an obligation to the state and to the Historical Society and whatnot to ensure that our records will be retrievable 100 years from now. In fact, we were just working with a historical group on some old records that we had archived that were from the 1800s as to the history of our school district. And so uh, if you're about to destroy, if you will, the paper records because you need to consolidate space, you better make sure and trust that the system you're putting it in is going to be there and is stable and doesn't lose records. And so Docuware had that history. We knew they came out of the European area, and the European standards in many ways were even exceeding our US standards at the time. And so that was one of the reasons. Flexibility, as you note, we don't have to store things all the same way. A file cabinet gives you one index method and you have to choose it. Is it last name? Is it employee number? What is it? Is it year for financial records? We have the ability to store financial records in one way, student records in a totally different way, and HR records in a third and different way. Whatever is important to those audiences is the way that we're able to store them. That flexibility has been key to making it easy for everyone to use. So, and it's grown. Its scalability, as you note, and IT, it works on our existing infrastructure. There was no special things we needed to really acquire, and so it was easy to implement that way.
All right, great. Yeah, definitely that's key, having Docuware be flexible, scalable, and, having that integration capability just to seamlessly, fit into your IT landscape so you don't have, minimize any downtime, implementation. So that's great to hear. So leading in now to my next question is, can you speak to, now with Docuware, what the benefits your team is enjoying? How are they working with Docuware, making their work lives easier?
Well, certainly. We're still a pretty paper-centric industry, unfortunately. We're getting better, education's getting better, but there are still so many things that are just coming on forms. And that includes the movement of records between school districts as students transfer and all these other things. And so there's been some initiatives in the industry to try to streamline that, but we're slow to get there. Uh, for one, multiple individuals touching records, as I noted in our HR example, but it also applies to student records. We can have multiple people facilitating both records requests, or if they need to work with an individual, or if they're asking to pull up financial records as to payments that we've made to a vendor. All these things can happen by multiple people, be it the supervisor or members of a team. And so we're not relying on only one person can stand in front of the file cabinet, which becomes all the more important in this COVID era when we're trying to really mitigate how people are working adjacent to each other even. And so then the speed at which they can do this, the ability to pull up those records is much more expedited as to the post in time when you used to have to get up from your desk and go to a physical area and whatnot to pull those records. Certainly the amount of space saved, we actually relocated our district offices about 10 years ago, and in doing so, didn't even accommodate the use for file cabinets. Really knew that we just didn't have any. I mean, obviously employees have their own individual single cabinet, but those stacks of file cabinets that offices used to have are no longer in our newest facility because we realized we had no need for them any longer. Everything was going to be digital. So, and then last week, the security and compliance requirements. In our realm, it's a need to know basis, and not everyone is entitled to see all the records. And so we control that through Docuware. Based on your job role and your job responsibility, we'll determine what you're able to do within the Docuware system and to see it. And as Marcus said earlier, we also are very cognizant of who can delete. We tend not to let many people delete just out of nature of security. And honestly, in a digital realm, digital doesn't take up as much space. It's easy to keep things a little bit longer until the permanence of the record is met.
Great, yeah. So it sounds, you're covered on the front end, streamlining processes. People can, work with documents when and where they need to, but also on the back end, like you said, meeting the security and compliance standards. So, it's great that you kind of have that like 360-degree coverage with, just this all-in-one solution. So yeah, kind of, wrapping up now, just curious, how was staff able to transition when they had to shift to remote working? How was that for you and them?
Well, you know, everything flipped on a dime on March 15th in Minnesota, and we went into a closed posture here in the state to prevent mitigation. And of all of the things that education had to flip, I give credit that Docuware was one of the ones that was actually pretty seamless for us. Given the interface, it's a contemporary web-based interface. The way people interacted with it did not change at all. So that component, they could continue to do their jobs. You know, we had many other things that we had to overcome with our employees, a lot of them being our legacy systems and to teach them how to work from home, but Docuware was not one of them. And so that was a blessing that that allowed us to kind of just continue status quo. We did make a few modifications because previously we had prevented, if you were coming from outside our network, the access was prevented. It was only read-only. And so we made a few changes with VPN access just so that people could do their jobs. You know, we had allowed for appends and removals as needed, modification of records they could do remotely through their credentials as we changed. And then since we are still in a paper realm, we've tended to use shared departmental scanners. We kept higher end scanners in each of the departments that like to do a lot of scanning. That doesn't quite work in a COVID situation, especially when everyone's been told that they really should not be coming to the office. So we actually sent scanners. The individuals were selected in each of their departments to be the designated person. They took it to their home, had it set up, and then they would come into the facility about every 3 days to basically take the inbox of things that had come up, and then they would perform the what paper scanning we needed to do. They would do it for their colleagues, and then they could store it into the cabinets on their behalf. So.
All right, great. Yeah, great to hear that was, with Docuware, transition was seamless. There not even seemed to be some sort of transition. And, with Docuware, you're going to be able to adapt to any future technology needs. So, all right, yeah, thanks, Tom. Thanks for sharing
My
that
pleasure.
story. Really appreciate it. So, let's recap kind of some main takeaways from how ISD was able to use Docuware. They streamline their processes, save time and money, and the records are secure, and only authorized or can be accessed by authorized users. So that's great. So again, Tom's just one story of Docuware being used at K-12 districts. We actually have in your handout section or go to our panel, I've actually loaded some other case studies for you to download. I'll also email these to you tomorrow, but you can see on the left, we have a school, Davies County Public Schools. They use Docuware in 7 departments and they're continuing to expand its usage. So they're big proponents of office automation for schools. And on the right, you can see Propel Schools, they use it in their business office to run, important business applications smoother. Staff can, again, easily and quickly access information they need so they can, keep work moving, keep everything secure, but still, be productive. So with that, we'll wrap it up. We'll start taking questions now. But again, I want to remind everyone, what you saw today was introductory, but we still want to continue the conversation. We want to get you up and running with Docuware at your school district. If you would like to see a more in-depth personalized demo, you can head to docuware.com/demo. If you have any questions or thoughts, maybe you need to review with your team, email us anytime at contact.us@docuware.com and we'll get back to you. You can email us tomorrow or next month. That email will get back to you. And, if you're already working with an authorized Docuware partner, definitely reach out to them first and they can get, you started and up and running with, additional features that you're interested in. So Tom and Mark, if you want to come back on the line, you can share your cameras as well. And we'll open it up for Q&A now. So, and again, I just want to remind everyone, I will email out the recording and the slides tomorrow. So first question, Mark, can you speak a little bit on, Docuware security? What are the features involved with that?
Absolutely. So Docuware uses, we have users, of course, and each user is assigned to a role or a group that has rights to different file cabinets. And of course, there's a user ID and password required to access the repository. So based on configuring appropriate security for a given user in a given role, they may have the right to see certain documents and not even be aware of other documents out there, all kind of trickling through proper configuration of user groups and roles. And again, security is all driven through a user ID and password to access the system.
Great, thanks. Next question is actually for Tom. What made you take the jump to Docuware versus other document management solutions?
Part of the thing that you need to do when evaluating is I think everybody needs to have a good partner in their area that helps work with them through things that you're not aware of. And so we had that in a company here. It's called AMI Imaging. They had familiarity with both the products and actually multiple products, as well as the scanners and the technology that we needed. And so working with them and evaluating what our needs were, we found this was the most cost-effective solution that also met the legal requirements. We were an early adopter in the state of Minnesota, so we actually worked with the Historical Society and our Department of Administration at the state because they were a little nervous that things were going to be scanned and no longer on paper. And so that gave us a lot of credence, though. And so having that partner, though, that helped us implement it was a big step.
Great, thank you. And so Mark, is there a limit to how many e-forms can be added to Docuware?
No, there's no limit to the number of e-forms. Also, just to be clear, an e-form can be filled by anybody that you allow to fill that form out. That can be made public. You can post them on your public website, and the individual that fills out that e-form does not need a Docuware license to complete the form. But there's no limit to the number of forms you can create and the number of forms that you could submit into Docuware.
Great. Next question is, can you restrict who can view, access, or take action on certain documents or document types? How granular can you go?
Yeah, absolutely. So through those user groups and roles, we can use the metadata or the index field tags that we use to describe documents to restrict access to any set of documents. So for example, if we have a metadata, an index field that says high security, we can lock down all documents with that field to only more senior people that have security rights to see those documents. So you can get down to very granular levels by using a combination of various tags and fields. So maybe the HR department can see all high security HR documents, but they can't see high security finance documents, for example. So we can get quite granular.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. Tom's question's for you. What feature do you find, the most beneficial, or maybe a standout feature of Docuware that you would want to highlight?
Well, I think the one that our staff are enjoying the most right now, probably Mark highlighted, where you could just drag over items and it auto indexes for you. Between that little feature, because we do still have paper, that or using the barcode and forms module, we have a lot of documents that come out of legacy systems or came from somewhere else that, and they might come over digitally into Docuware, but we just have that system set up to auto detect what they are based on what they look like. So it recognizes the form, be it a vacation slip or be it a work order, and based on what it knows about the form, it then knows where the index values also are. So a lot of it becomes requiring little or no human intervention anymore. And so they've really appreciated that from a workflow perspective, to let Docuware take care of the work and not us. But
Right. All right, great. We'll close out. Thanks again, Tom. Really appreciate you joining us. Thanks
my
again,
pleasure.
Mark, for
My
showing
pleasure.
us, those different use cases. Did any of you guys have any final thoughts before I close out?
Nope, I think we can wrap up for the day for me.
All right. Thanks so much. All right, everyone. You'll get an email from me no later than tomorrow morning. And definitely reach out to your authorized Docuware partner or us to get started. Thank you so much and hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Bye now.